When you're touring a senior living community, what should you look for? What questions should you ask? What are the must-haves that you have? How can you be prepared to evaluate one community against another? Hey everybody, I am Chris Harper, and my goal is to answer all of these questions and more for you today on this episode of Senior Living Live. What is Senior Living Live, you ask? Well, this is a show that's designed to dig deep into the world of senior living and give you answers so that you can make informed decisions. Our mission is to help you live the life that you want to live. Today, we're talking about touring senior living communities. In last week's show, we discussed the things you should ask when calling a community for the first time, and now we're taking that to the next step of the actual tour. The time when you go to the community and see it in person, meet the staff, and really start honing in on the community or the communities that you're interested in. So as you can see, I'm not here alone today. I'm joined by the talented Karen DeMarco, who's going to help us talk through this topic today. How are you doing today, Karen?
I'm doing well, thank
Great.
you.
Thank you for joining us. So
My
Karen
pleasure.
got here with very little traffic, which we're
Yeah,
happy to
always
see.
happy.
That's always fun. So Karen, how long have you worked in senior living?
Senior living's always been a part of my life, but actually industry, goodness, 2.5 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. So in that time, you have seen a tour,
Correct.
right? You have participated in a tour.
That is correct.
As the tour host or the person who's actually giving the tour. Have you actually toured a community yourself, like as a customer before?
Well, not so much as a customer, but as a courtesy to my community. I think it's very important to tour all of the communities surrounding us, befriend, because this is a work in progress, and we do want to be able to help families and know what's out there.
And know
So
what's
yes,
out there,
as
yeah.
a consumer, I guess you would say
Yeah.
I've toured other communities.
And that's a good point. I mean, there could be circumstances where your community is not the best fit for someone.
That
You
is
want to be
correct.
able to recommend other
Yes,
communities
and
in the
guide
area.
and help and assist.
Yeah, great. Well, that's what we're talking about today. So if you are joining us live on the show, give us a shout out. Let us know where you're watching from. Write down in the comments below the video. And if you have any questions or any tips of your own that you'd like to share, any follow-up from what we are saying, be sure to leave those there, and we'll check those throughout the show. Jonathan is watching. He says, great topic. So glad to see.
It is a
Thanks,
good
Jonathan.
topic.
This is a good topic, we think, at least, as we kind of work through the
great
journey
topic.
here in this little series that we're doing. Now, we're also talking, all of the information that we're talking about today is coming from, it's coming from the mind of Karen to some degrees. But we have also produced a checklist. So this is a checklist that we have on our site that you can download for free. It's called Considerations Before Moving, and it's got this little grid on it. And you can write the different communities that you're looking at on the top, and then it's all these different things, these items down the side that you can kind of check off. Does this community have that? Does another community have it? And what we've done is we've kind of, you do want to ask about amenities and apartment types and all of that kind of stuff, but our checklist doesn't really have that, because ultimately the communities that you visit, they're going to show you apartments. They're going to talk about their amenities. They're going to talk about the activities and things that they do. What we tried to do with the checklist that we created is to dive a little bit deeper into some kind of the more important things, maybe. Amenity, not to say that amenities aren't important or pricing isn't important, but there's a little bit more that goes into it. And I think a lot of these would be the things that if you didn't have a checklist, they would be things that you would kind of have in the back of your mind anyway, or it might be the impression that you have of the community, but you couldn't quite put your finger on it of why you like this one more than another one. And so what we try to do is to give you a tool that gives you some of the questions and things that you can look for, and then you can kind of on an even playing field compare one community to another. Now, I mentioned this checklist is available on our website, and you can download it for free. To get to that, all you've got to do is just type the word checklist right in the comments right below this video. And if you do that, we will send you a little text message within Facebook Messenger. So you got to be a user of Facebook Messenger, and it'll have a link for you to download it right there. So just easy peasy. You can go ahead and do that now. Just write checklist in the comments, and then after the show, you can go and follow that link and download it. You can print it off. You can send it to a friend, whatever. If you don't use Facebook Messenger, you can just go to arborcompany.com/checklist, and it will take you to the checklist that way. So I think we can kind of dive right into this. So the checklist that we have, it starts with first impressions. I mean, that's first way to start things.
Of
So,
course.
Karen, tell me, what do you think about first impressions of a community? What does that look like in your mind?
Well, it's so very important because as you said, you just can't put a label on it. It's a feeling. It's something you get. It's how you're greeted. If you have a warmth when you enter the building, it's bigger than the actual building itself. How you feel, how you're greeted is very key and important. If the staff is smiling, if people come up to you and approach you and welcome you, all of those things are very, very key and important. You want to feel like a guest that's welcome in their home.
Yeah, I totally agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think you want to, so it goes beyond looking at just the, is their grass cut and,
Yeah.
and trimmed and all of that kind of stuff. And do they have pretty flowers out front all throughout the year? And is it clean as you walk in? Like, that all is important, but I think it's also the first impression of, are you greeted when you walk in the door?
How you feel.
And how do you feel,
Mm-hmm.
right? When you walk into a place if you feel comfortable or not. And you should feel comfortable when you walk into the community, even though you may be nervous and you may be going through a lot of things in your mind. But the community that's right for you, chances are will kind of ease those fears a little bit.
That is correct.
Right? Okay.
I kind of equate it to searching for colleges, searching for daycares,
Yeah.
house hunting. Everybody has their own idea of what's home for them, and it's going to be different for every person. And it does go full circle if you think about it.
Yeah, I would totally agree with that. So so that is first impression. So the next category that we have in our checklist is communication. And so, some of the items that we have on here, all of my requests are responded to within 24 hours. The staff communication is clear and delivered in a timely manner. So, these are things that throughout the sales process of looking at a senior living community, you're going to be talking with typically some type of salesperson like Karen in the community, or the executive director at the community, or other people. How well do they communicate with you? Because chances are that is a good indicator of what type of communication you're going to get from that community or from that company in the future as things move forward. So other items we've got on here, the community encourages honest and open feedback, and my feedback is valued. So any other thoughts about communication there?
I think when you speak of communication, one of the biggest components in my opinion is listening to the needs of that family walking through the door, understanding what they're communicating to us versus us strictly communicating to them, because we are there to meet their needs. So the communication is a two-way street.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. So let's move forward. The next category we've got is community culture. So, do you feel that the community and the people who work there do they care about seniors? I mean, it seems sort of like the no-brainer thing, but I think that's important. Do you get the feeling that the people who work there and the people who run that community are there for the right reason? Or are they, are they just there trying to, make a buck?
Observe. It's, we're going to give you one job, and it's just to observe the community and what are people actually doing. You can tell if they're having a great day, and they don't even notice you there, but they're just enjoying their time with residents, families, friends.
Yeah,
that's the goal.
Yeah, and and if you can, as you're touring the community, chances are you'll see a staff member interacting with a resident, right? And just look at how that interaction goes. Is it cold and businesslike, and is it just they're there to get the job done, or are they they're having some fun, they're joking around, they're cutting up? That's the kind of thing that you want to see.
And if it's genuine.
Is it genuine? Yeah. Try to talk to some staff members. Introduce yourself in the hallway, and just ask them how long they've worked there and how they like working there, and they'll answer for you. And if you get shooed away from the staff members by the salespeople, then
let's hope not.
That could be a red flag. But let's hope not, right? And so that kind of leads us into the next category that we have in the checklist, which is people. Do you feel, as you have those conversations with the staff, are they warm? Do they seem competent? Do they seem like they know what they're doing, or did they all just get hired yesterday? Unfortunately, the senior living industry has a lot of turnover, and statistically, as the entire industry, and we in our company have been blessed really of having lower turnover than a typical community or company like ours. But I think that's something to ask. How long have the staff been there?
I think you touched on a really great point there. And having the opportunity to meet the executive director to me is very key. Your RN, find out first of all if they have a registered nurse on the premises and an LPN, and take that opportunity to meet them. Sometimes you just assume there is an executive director on the premises, and you tour, you have a great experience. And maybe there isn't one at the moment, but you just wouldn't know that if you didn't ask. And that's very important because they are the leader of your community.
Yeah. And if you don't know, executive director is sort of the industry term for the person who is in charge of the community. So if you think into like hotel language, it would be like the general manager. In the senior living industry, we call them executive directors. And then they have different department heads within the community that report to them. So that is a huge piece. Another thing that I would ask about is training. What type of training do the staff go to? Do they show up on their first day of work and they're, given a set of keys and told to have fun? Or do they, do they have an ongoing training? Do they have initial training when they first join the company? All of that is super important to think about, I think. We've got a pretty strong training.
Very strong.
Do you talk about that when you give a tour to a community?
Oh, very much, as well as tenure of our staff, and we're very proud of that. And it's ongoing, the training continuously, and we really appreciate that. We really do.
Yeah, and that's something, not every company does this, but we train all of our staff, even the folks who don't interact with residents on a regular basis. So, like behind the scenes people who may work in a kitchen or something like that. They get the same type of training for how to work with seniors in the different stages of the aging process, in different stages of the memory loss process for those with dementia. And we find that tremendously valuable. And not everybody in the community gets the same exact, thorough training all the way through, but at least there's an initial kind of, we call it level 1 training for everybody, that exposure, right? Okay, so it looks like we got a couple of comments here. Jonathan's got a lot to say. So Jonathan says that he immediately looks at the residents' demeanor and how they are engaged by staff.
I think that's wonderful.
Yeah, absolutely. Look at the residents, and are they engaged? Are they doing activities? I think that's huge. Do you when you give someone a tour, do you try to take them to see existing residents?
Well, the goal is that the residents are part of the community and they're out and about. So you obviously will bump into the residents, and it's a joy to introduce them to our community and hear their story. And they're overall excited. The goal is they want to share the community with them. So thank you. That's a great tip that he brought up.
Yeah, thank you for that, Jonathan. That's a huge one. And I would say too, to take that another step further, try to talk to those residents, right?
Sure.
And get their impression, learn their story. Where did they live before they moved into the community? What made them select that community? Don't be afraid to talk to those folks. And I know I toured a community with one of my grandmothers, this is a couple years ago now, and we actually had lunch, and something that was really important to her was other people who were kind of on her same playing field in terms of her, like she liked to play certain games, and she wanted to make sure that there were people who were, in her words, smart enough to play those games.
Sure.
And so when we came in for the tour, we were actually toured with the executive director of that community, and she had us in for lunch. So we did the tour, and then we sat down and had lunch, and she brought a couple of residents who had similar interests to my grandmother to the table. And so we had lunch with them and were able to have a conversation. And that was huge for us, because we were able to, just spend more time than just kind of passing in a hallway of getting to know people, getting to know what they like and, how they got to where they were. And so I would say ask for that. I think that's a huge, maybe that's not on your first tour.
You had an experience, and that's the whole goal when you go to senior living. It is about a checklist to a degree, but it's more about how did you experience your visit.
Yeah.
That's your takeaway, because you can go back home and review those notes, but you want to be in the moment and really experience and take it all in.
Yeah, you can look at a brochure and see, how many activities they do in a day, or if they have a pool or not, or whatever. But it's what we're trying to do here is to give you those intrinsic benefits and things that can be sometimes hard to vocalize and give you a way to.
And
do
the curiosity of who lives at the community is so key. And I really enjoy tours around the dinner hour or lunch hour. There's a buzz in the room and people are talking, and it kind of takes the edge down. We have a lot of residents that live with us now that toured on their own accord versus sons or daughters. There's all different kinds of people that will come in and tour. You can have daughter-in-laws, father, so it's just really nice to break the ice a little when people come in to tour.
That's a great point. So the next section that we have in the checklist is about deep connections. And so, I'll read a couple of things here. An effort is made to personally know each resident. Staff engage in meaningful interactions. I think we've covered some of this here. Do they have special events? So, their activity program, we call it engagement, but it could be activities, or it could be life enrichment, or different companies call it different things. It's all the same stuff. But do they customize those calendars based on who lives in the community? I think that's huge. I mean, we've talked on the show about how important activity is, and if everything that they do is boring to people or is not what the residents are interested in, then that's kind of a problem, right?
Yeah, you want to individualize it, and you want to just enhance or maybe open a window of something that the resident always has wanted to have done, and they just never really got around to it. So it's a great opportunity to really explore who's moving into the community.
Yeah, and I would say don't be afraid to ask about the activities that you may be interested in.
Yeah.
So, if you're so my grandmother, again, that example, she's really interested in playing mahjong, and she wanted to move into a community that has people who play. I mean, she was very specific about that. You may be a gardener, and you can still garden when you live in a senior living community. They have a lot of communities have really great. Do you have raised gardens
we
in
do.
the back? So
And we use
don't even
the
have
herbs,
to bend over.
We use the tomatoes. The chef Robert, uses all that great stuff.
Yeah,
They'll go out and pick jalapenos, and it's on the dinner table.
That's fantastic. And so, if you're interested in that, ask about it. Ask if they have classes. Ask if they have, if you're interested in like lectures or discussion groups. A lot of communities have that. You got to kind of let the person who's giving you the tour know what you're interested in, so they can show you what is available.
And from an engagement standpoint, that's so exciting, because if it's not something being done, what a great tool and a new discovery for everyone in the community. So
absolutely.
It's really important to individualize.
That's fantastic. And then I would ask about residents who share similar interests. I mean, we talked about that a little bit, but if you're interested in old cars, and see if anybody else is interested in old cars, and you may have some fun things to talk about. And then in the future, you may be able to work with the engagement director, activities director to plan outings and trips to car shows or things like that, using that example. So lots of fun ideas there. So then that kind of takes us to resident care. So to this point, we've been talking just sort of generally about senior living. The resident care piece kind of comes in more in the assisted living and memory care space, where you've got nurses and care staff and folks who are taking care. But if you are looking at assisted living, one of the questions that I would ask is, how personal is the care that they're providing? Is it kind of this cookie cutter approach, or do you have any say in what your care looks like or what your preferences are? I think that's huge, right?
It's key. It's very key. Everyone is going to come in individual with different needs. We have couples come in. So we really want to design and build a plan that's going to work for each individual. Some may need more help. Some are there and have their own cars and just enjoy the fact of having 3 meals prepared for them and a social calendar, housekeeping included too. So again, it's about each and every individual.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very important
I would
questions.
say, do they also offer any specialized care programs? Ask about the type of care, even if you don't need it right now. You could need it in the future. Hopefully you don't, but
True.
you never know. So do they have like diabetic management programs? Do they have rehab in the building? I think that's a big piece. And the way I like to explain that is, if for some reason you don't want to, but if you had to go out for surgery, a lot of times the doctor will prescribe you to go into rehab after that, which is typically a different type of place to live in. But if that community has rehab on site, is going to get you back into your own bed in your own bedroom a lot faster than if you had to stay, for multiple weeks.
And even a better tool, if you do need to go to a rehab, to know that you have rehab and extension in place. Once you've graduated from that, you're just going to get stronger and healthier, and that's really key.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, so let's talk about our accountability and financial solutions. How, what kind of financial solutions are available in the community? And a lot of times they may not have their own financial solutions, but what do they have available? What partnerships do they have with other companies? Could you just, we haven't really done a show about this yet, but could you just sort of explain some of the financial
Well, I can start to
solutions?
expand upon that. There are many types of financial solutions. Obviously, a lot of the components, people are coming in already as a homeowner, so they have the entire equity of their home. They can look at selling that home. Then you have the component of veterans. This generation is a generation of veterans. And unbeknownst to them, there is something called Veterans Aid and Assistance, which is a great tool, and it will offset costs. You know, if you're in lieu and do need an immediate move in, we have something called elder law. And that's across the board for any type of assisted living community out there. Yeah. You know, all the communities come together to try and help and assist. Very key. And, you know, it's really good to discuss and look at that financial component. Many people think they don't qualify, and just to sit down, and when you do in-home care versus longevity, you can really see the rewards and benefits. So it's really good to go through that.
Yeah.
And we're here to help. You know, we want to advise correctly. That's very key that you know that.
Mm-hmm. So I think as you're comparing communities, you want to look at communities that offer assistance with this type of thing, and they seem like they know what they're talking about, as opposed to them just kind of pointing you to a website and hoping for the best.
And I mean, financial guidance is very key and important. We really want to review that and help you, and we want to ensure that 6 months down the road or a year down the road that you've made a great decision, and you know financially you're going to be stable, and we want to ensure that we're guiding you correctly. That's very important. Mm-hmm. That's our duty, I feel. Yeah. To financially share that. And
hopefully you get that in every community you walk into. But you know,
it's an important
you
component.
might not everywhere. Mm-hmm. And so those are the types of things that you just want to see. Is that community, the staff that you interact with, the salesperson you interact with, does it feel like they're on your team versus they're just trying to sell you something? Yeah. I think that's a big component of it.
Our goal is to educate and help you. It really is.
Yeah, so just backing up a second, Jonathan, again, knocking it out of the park here.
Hey, Jonathan.
Jonathan mentioned ratios. So
correct.
I think the staff to resident ratio in different departments in different living areas, that's a huge one to ask about too. And, you know, jot it down on your checklist.
Yeah, very key. I mean, obviously there's going to be state guidelines, which you can find. Of course, you know, Georgia's going to be different than any of the other communities, so you want to be mindful of that. But yeah, that's a really important. And then you have to realize there's state ratios, but depending on the needs of the individuals in the community, it should be higher versus lower. A lot of things. And again, our goal is to educate and share what that really means.
Yeah, I would agree with that too. So, so that kind of covers the checklist. And again, you can download that. We'll talk about that in a second. But I think beyond that, Karen had a great idea that she shared with me when she got here today. So she's got this note. Show them the notebook that you have here. And so what do you do with this notebook?
This is the notebook, and I am very fortunate to have a partner in crime named Lisa at my community that also is a senior care counselor. One of the great things that we love to do is, you know, when the tour has commenced and they're getting ready to go to the car, first of all, we hope they've only maybe planned 2 to 3, no more than 3 tours a day, because it gets daunting.
Oh, I can imagine.
And we have them go to their car, and before they even, you know, turn on that ignition key, write 3 things that they really felt great about. First impressions, something that won't show up in a brochure, a feeling or a vibe, those things that aren't on paper. And then we also say, you know, you may have had red flags that you kind of took out of your head and didn't want to exist, but you may have had some red flags. And if so, 2 or 3, jot those down too, because you're going to forget them. But when you go back and remind, and then, you know, that's our duty as the executive director. He can call the next day and they can review that list and answer your questions.
Yeah,
that's our goal.
I think that's huge, and you know, and ask those questions.
Ask the questions.
You're not going to think of everything while you're in the tour. In fact, the next question, the first question you have, is going to be as you're walking through the parking lot back to your car.
Right. Well, what did I say to you today? I was like, remind me to talk about that.
There you go, because you forget things, right?
But it's so valuable.
You want to write it down.
Yeah, I think it's just valuable. It's easy too.
And that's why I think it's valuable to have a checklist like this to be able to kind of, you know, some of these things are pre-written and on the checklist, and it's right here. So you got these columns here where you can write the community names, you can check things off, and add your own things.
Right.
What's important to you? See what communities have and what don't, because you're going to forget.
Yeah, and that's a good tip. I would say it's not on here as well, but everybody has different things that are important. Find out what are the 3 most important things to you when you're looking, because again, it's going to be different from your neighbors. It's really key to think of what's most important for the resident that's going to be moving in and joining us, as opposed to maybe the daughter or son. But let's put, mom or dad or grandma and grandpa in perspective and really hone in on what are their needs, what's important to them. And it kind of narrows down the overwhelmingness of it.
Yeah, I think that's a huge point. So we've shared a lot of information today. And I think the big picture with all of this is that you should be prepared with the things that you want to look for in a community and the questions that you want to ask before you come in for a tour. And you may not know everything, but try to think ahead. What's important to you? What's important to mom? And make sure you have that list with you at every community so that you can evaluate them on as common ground as possible. Now, if you did not write down everything we talked about today, never fear, we've got you covered. Just type the word checklist down in the comments below, and we'll be sure to send you our free checklist that gives you all of these points and more. You can print it out, take it with you on a tour, keep it in your car, whatever. There's even columns, like we said, so you can compare all of the communities that you're touring in one place. You can also access that checklist by going to arborcompany.com/checklist, or again, just typing the word checklist in the comments below. If we talked about something today that you think someone else may find helpful, please share this information with them, share the video with them. There's a little share button right below the video. We want this information to help as many people as possible, and you can play an important part in that in someone's life. So next week's show is going to be at this same time, Tuesday at 11 a.m. If you want a reminder in Facebook Messenger, we can send that to you. Just type the word show in the comments below, and I will send you a message with a link when we go live. You can just click it right there in the Facebook Messenger app on your phone or iPad. So super helpful. Thanks for joining our conversation today. I'm so happy that you're here, that you're joining us. Keep those comments coming. Let us know if you have any questions. We will answer those in the comments or in a future show. And if you know you're going to go on a tour, let us know. We want to know how it went. Wherever you are. If you're near an Arbor Company community, great. If not, we want you to find the best place. We want you to live your best life. We want to get any feedbacks from you and tips that you may have for other people. I think
Is it Jonathan?
Does Jonathan have another comment here? I don't see. My comments aren't refreshing. So with that, I think we'll kind of wrap things up today. We will see you next week. Thank you, Karen, for joining. We're so happy to have you here. Will you come back to be on the show again?
I will come back.
Okay, good. As long as we do it outside of Atlanta traffic time. Right?
Yeah, and it was fine. I've learned to live with that. It's fine.
Well, thank you all for joining today. You can see more episodes at seniorlivinglive.com. It'll take you right to our video page on Facebook. I will see you next week. Bye-bye.